welcome to the spoiler review for season 2 of House of the Dragon on Geek Bites, brought to you by the
Geek Buddies.
Hey! Y'all give me a break. It's Monday morning, and it's been over 15 months, I think, since we covered House of the Dragon. It's crazy how much time has passed since October of 2022, but we are here now with season 2. So much to talk about. A son for a son, and Lord Almighty, did they take a son by the end of this episode? Crazy stuff that happened in this episode, but also an interesting, soft walk back into this world until we had that shocking moment in the finale. But certainly seeing how the movement is happening here between the black and the greens, who's on whose side from the different houses. And also we start off with an interesting trip to the north, to the wall, and to the land of Winterfell there with another Stark, which we'll talk about here. So we're going to cover all of it here in this spoiler review. But let's introduce ourselves first. I'm the Outlaw John Rocha, writer, producer, and host here on the Geek Buddies.
I am Michael Vogel, writer and producer of animated TV shows and movies.
And this is Shannon of House McClung. I'm a television actor and an animation writer, where you can see some of our current work right now in the kingdom of Netflix and YouTube with House Shortcake, Strawberry, Big City in the Berryeth.
Wow. Mike, it started out well, and then kind of
started strong. Started
strong, stumbled at the end there. But Michael, I go to you first here. What an opening. As I said, we've got the greens and the blacks certainly starting out at Winterfell, but the basically just showing what's happening here, what the weaknesses and the strengths are on both sides. We have the leading ladies on both sides going through their own journeys, with Rhaenyra dealing with needing to find the evidence of that Luke is dead and having to process that and wanting the death of Aemon. On the other side, Alicent dealing with Otto's machination, dealing with Larys's plans, dealing with Aegon as her son and king, who's kind of half in, half out on the situation, Aemon's impetuousness, her relationship with Cristen Cole, and then, of course, later on when she is in the room having sex with Cristen Cole, when her daughter runs in to tell her about the death of her grandson. So a lot going on both sides. What are your thoughts overall on this particular episode as a way to come back for season 2?
Well, my first thought is I've never needed a recap more in my entire life than I needed the previously on House of the Dragon this season. It's like you almost forget it's so enjoyable, and they do such a good job actually of giving you the information that you need and kind of like knowing the heart of what's going on. Like, you might not remember every single character and whose dad is who and who's why these kids have blonde hair and these kids don't, and all the little details, but you get the meat of it. And they dove right back in. I mean, this was coming back into the world hard. Like, yes, they did sort of walk some things back and give you the information, like you said, but I mean, everyone is at an 11 in this episode.
Yeah.
And it was a joy. I mean, you know, we reviewed Shogun, or no, we didn't review, you guys reviewed Shogun on Cinephiles, and I watched them. But you know, with a show like Shogun that was so beautiful and so often compared to Game of Thrones, coming back to the world of Westeros, and we talked about this last season, particularly after Game of Thrones with season 7 and 8 didn't necessarily stick their landing. It's just so great to be back in this world and to just be immersed in it in the way that they did in this episode. And I mean, already edge of my seat, first episode in. I don't know if my heart can survive the rest of the season after what we dealt with, but I'm here for it.
Yeah. Shannon, we begin, in essence, the dance of the dragons now, bleeding off from what happened at the end of last season. Right into this season, we see where everybody's positioned. We hear about more of the other kingdoms. There's a Lannister who might get ridden like a pony. There's a lot that happened here in this opening episode. What did you think about what we got here before we jump into the specifics?
I mean, again, it was a much needed recap.
Oh, yeah.
And even throughout the episode, I'm like, a lot of these names sound similar. Who are you again? Who's actually your dad? But we're from the Valerians, but your dad was Lord Strong, and that's what got it. But again, the acting, the directing, everything is just so on point. This is just a very lived-in world. Yeah. And even though it takes a second for my brain to sort of Westerosi recalibrate, it is just so well done. And really, even though Emma Darcy really only had one line in this episode, I mean, this show rides on the backs of Cook and Emma Darcy, and they are both just so good. And it's like you understand everyone's points of view. Like there's no binary in this. It's like everyone is just shades of gray.
Yeah.
Like even Otto at times, I'm like, is Otto bad?
Yes.
Yeah. Is Alicent bad? Kinda.
Yeah.
I really like Rhaenys, but the show was really, really enjoyable, and who knew how we were going to end the first episode? I did not expect that. But excellent episode.
Yeah, I have to agree. I really enjoyed this episode. I like that it didn't just boom, jump back into everything and just send your brain into a tizzy. You just got to slowly get back into everything, the emotional beats of what was happening with everybody. Of course, with the House Black because of the dealing of the death of the son there's more emotional journeys to go on that side for now. On this side, on the green side, it's more about political machinations and who they can rely on to stop this blockade, to get over this blockade, to keep their position powerful. So it was different in that way. But starting out with Winterfell, which I'm going to ask you guys about specifically, I thought was a genius way to let you know, look, the first season, we kept it pretty small. We kept it in this area. We kept it between these two people. Now we're sticking our toes out a little. We're going to span the world a little bit and let you feel this. So we have more guts now because we know you guys were coming out of season 8 of Game of Thrones and we're really not ready to jump into a whole expansive thing. Fine, we let you do a small one here, season 1. You guys loved it. All right, we're going to take a little chance and get bigger. And so that excites me as well, seeing this particular episode. And I just liked that approach so that it led to what it led to, which is what I think is one of the great things about the show. These deaths are at times tragic, accidental, and fuck-ups. And so I love that because human beings are essentially capable of all of those things. And whereas the books, and they play with the books because the books are a little more ambiguous in certain things. So I appreciate that they've added their own points of view on this. And we'll get to the big, of course, blood and cheese situation, which people are up in arms about and later on in the show. But I got to start with Winterfell. I mean, this is such an incredible beginning. What did you guys think of this idea of starting here at Winterfell with Lord Creggen Stark, who is what is he? He's like the great grandfather of Ned Stark here.
After you get past 2 greats, nobody's paying attention. You can just throw like you don't. No one's gonna count that many. Just like he's a great up there. He's up there.
He begot and beget and begetting all of this stuff. Right, exactly. So there was so much here that was looked at here. So what did you think of this beginning here? Talking about duty, talking about sacrifice, having the Valyrian sword prominently displayed, telling Jaehaerys about how he'll send the Greybeards, which is tradition there that we find during the Easter egg study. Tradition to send the Greybeards. The old men are prepared to die in battle so that the young men can stay and protect the wall. So, Michael, what did you think of beginning with Winterfell and hearing this conversation and hearing that northern accent coming through at the beginning of this episode?
Well, I mean, I think you're exactly right. I mean, what the show is doing, and I mean, also like planning for success. Like we all liked House of the Dragon. They're going to spend more money on it. It shows on screen. But in the world, you're absolutely right. Season 1 was all about the family.
Yeah.
I mean, season 1 was about Rhaenyra and Alicent and watching how the Targaryen family kind of split. So there were obviously other families involved, the Hightowers and everything else, but this wasn't a Westerosi problem yet. Mm-hmm. And with the death at the end of season 1, everything elevates to the next level, and we are now seeing the rest of Westeros getting pulled in. And as fans of Game of Thrones, if you are going to embody that, and where do we want to go to show all of Westeros getting pulled in? Go to Winterfell, remind us of what we love. And even if you watch the behind the scenes stuff that HBO Max has up on the house that Dragons built, even the crews loved going back to Winterfell, going back to the Wall, kind of taking these iconic locations and bringing them back. Yeah. And to kick things off with a Stark giving a speech about duty, I mean, like, that's where Game of Thrones started. Ned Stark and his goddamn devotion to duty got all of that shit going. And so kind of seeing a Stark wrestle with his 2 duties, like his duty to Westeros and his duty to the Wall, and kind of say, okay, here's what I'm going to do. The Starks are going to stand with you guys because you guys had the decency to not threaten us with a dragon. I think also the Starks are sort of, for the audience, our North Star. Like,
Oh, interesting.
I mean,
Okay.
obviously, the show is pretty much Team Black. I mean,
Yeah,
like
seems
sure,
like.
Daemon's a little bit of a wild card, but it's pretty clear where the show wants our loyalties to lie. But by having a Stark side with Team Black, that kind of says, okay, the honorable people are going this way. So I think it did a lot of things. It reminded us of why we love Game of Thrones in the first place. It gave us some locations that are very iconic. So even if you're a little bit confused going in, you're like, oh, okay, Winterfell on the Wall. I know those places. I'm good. I can keep going. And it kind of gives us a sense of the expanding conflict that's coming. So I think it did a lot of really great things in a really subtle way to kind of get us all pulled right back into a world that we all now, fortunately, kind of love again.
Yeah. Yeah. Shannon, your thoughts here? Because I mean, certainly Creggen tells him, we didn't build a 700-mile tall wall to keep just wildlings out. There's death that's coming, because that's what Jaehaerys says, is wildlings in nature is like, yeah, but also death. And so essentially implying the White Walkers might be a bigger conversation maybe in this season. They were alluded to last season, not strongly, but it seems like starting this way is their way of reminding people what people loved about Game of Thrones initially, and then also opening the door, because that Song of Ice and Fire and all of that. So what do you think of this opening here with Winterfell and Lord Creggen Stark?
Well, one, we skipped over it, like the fact that they changed the opening credits.
Yeah, I have it on my Easter eggs, but yes, you can bring that up if you like. Sure.
I love the change. I was just like, God, I almost would have done this the first time, because it is the world of Game of Thrones, but this is the civil war between a family, and you see the needlework in these tapestries coming together. Like, whoever came up with that, I have to think that their boss is like, that's a great freaking idea. I really wish you'd thought of it 18 months ago, because we should have done this from the beginning. Yeah. Starting the episode, I mean, just hearing, Ramin Djawadi's Winterfell theme, like automatically, we're going to see some Starks, and him and Creggen talking about, like, you see them drawing lots essentially, and he talks about the wall isn't just manned by criminals and second sons who have no lands and no titles. Like, it's manned by someone from his bloodline. And it's not a punishment; it's an honor. So you get the sense of, like, the legacy of the Starks, how this is who came before Ned, and there's a reason Ned was the way he was, and this is sort of the genesis of that. Right. So super enjoyed it. And the moment where he says the line you guys already said, like, do you think my ancestors built a 700-foot wall of ice to keep out savages and snow? I mean, my guess is that we're not really going to see anything past the wall. That this is probably one of the only times we'll see Winterfell. Yeah. But it was really nice to open it. And if you watch the behind the scenes afterwards, they basically say, like, budgetarily, this probably didn't make any sense. Right. But for the audience, like, this was the right way to get us back in to House of the Dragon and to Westeros.
Yeah, I mean, by
the way, it's really good when a production team says budgetarily this makes no sense, but that's a sign of a show that's got some money, baby.
Yeah, and some money and some moxie, that's for sure. The lines: duty is sacrifice; it eclipses all things, even blood. All men of honor must pay its price. So, and I love that was just hearing the accent again was so great. It got me so excited. Seeing the crow flying there to lead us into that, I thought was awesome as well. Loved the beginning here, and there's some Easter eggs being mentioned here with with King Jaehaerys and Queen Alicent in this conversation about their dragons, Vermithor, and what's the other dragon here that she has? I'm sorry, Silverwing. Both of them not being able to go past the wall. Well, those two dragons are going to come into play here in the Dance of the Dragon. So just keep those in the back of your mind. I thought it was a great beginning. Really enjoyed it. Thought it was good to expand the world a little bit more, remind people that, hey, while you guys are playing your little parlor games down in the castle, we're actually keeping the whole thing alive with what we're doing here at Winterfell. So I always love that as a reminder. So to bring that back, so shall I say starkly at the beginning, I thought was a smart move for the show as well. Let's move on to Team Green here, Shannon. This is the bulk of what happened in the episode. Let's start with Queen Alicent and her conversations with Otto. It seems like we're creating a civil war within the Greens, in that it's Queen Alicent and Otto and maybe Kristen Cole when he's having sex with her. And on the other side, it's Aegon, Aemon, Kristen Cole when he's not having sex with her, and Larys possibly now moving into a position like Wormtongue, whispering in the king's ear to get him to get rid of the old head who's been around for 3 kings and bring in this new blood like me. Hey, I set my own brother and dad on fire. Come on, hook me up. So what did you think of how all these things were moving around in the kingdom here under Team Green here?
I mean, these are all fascinating characters. Each like 5 different characters, 5 different points of view. They're all not all blood related, but they're all connected. Yeah. Everything that we're watching, these are the ramification of Alicent's decision. And granted, when Viserys died, she heard what he said. And was it an active betrayal of what he said? No, she thought this is what he was saying.
Yeah.
And but this is all the fallout from this one decision. And you can see Alicent, it feels like she wants to do the right thing. And in her mind's eye, putting Aegon on the throne is the right thing. She doesn't want Rhaenyra to die. Like she wants peace, but in putting her son on the throne, she's not going to get it. Right. And Otto is trying to tell her that, like, ever since Viserys died, he's like, this is not going according to plan.
Right.
And I want the same thing you want. But the path that we're on, the way we're going to get peace is through violence. I loved the way that Otto sort of undercut her at the small council meeting, and her saying, like, if you keep such a great line, if you keep undermining my voice, that my voice is going to become deaf to my sons. Mm-hmm. And you can see even Otto, even like, yes, he is despicable. He doesn't want bloodshed. He's just like, no, this is what needs to happen. This is I don't think he wants to kill a bunch of people. He just wants things his way. But to get at this point,
conversation, I thought, I hadn't seen it that way. It's very advanced in their back and forth. I thought was fantastic.
I thought that was totally authentic. I think he's being honest. Aegon is just like, poor Alicent. She just has 2 shit kids, just 2 shit sons. And you see the difference because they had the same dad. And it's kind of like, okay, how did Rhaenyra turn out the way she did versus Aegon and Aemon turning out the way they did?
Yeah.
And is it 100% the Otto factor? Maybe, or maybe it's because Viserys was a younger man and had a wife that he loved and raised his child with love versus he was kind of an absentee landlord when it came to his sons.
Yeah.
Kristen Cole, I think we can all agree this is a son of a bitch. And that he's only going to get worse. I wish that they would age him a little bit.
Hey.
No. Don't touch that. Don't touch that face. Don't touch it. Let that face be.
Give him some Hal Jordan, Reed Richards gray, and give him something. Because he's just so...
Look at him. Look at that specimen. Come on, give me a break.
Fabian Frankel, he's just a good-looking dude.
He really is.
But also doing a great job. He does a great job playing a bastard. And
this is the longest stretch of rebound sex I've ever seen. Like, get over it, guy. So, yeah.
And Aemon as well. Like, I'm blanking on the actor's name right now, but the power of his stillness when he delivers those lines. And, we talk about sometimes the nonverbal acting. He's literally working with half of his eyes, but he's still so effective. I mean, granted, he has very striking bone structure, but also just the stillness in which he delivers those lines, the coldness. Like, you can see how he and Daemon are related.
Right. Ewan Mitchell is the actor who plays Aemon. Yeah, absolutely. And Tom Glencarney is the one who plays Aegon. And I'll go, if you guys have watched those HBO little vignettes they've released where they just hang out asking questions of each other, those two have such fantastic chemistry. The irony is that Aegon, the actor who plays Aegon, is much more of an alpha in the back and forths than the other actor is who plays Aemon, there, Ewan Mitchell. So it's fun to see that dynamic switch around when you watch the show because they're so different in that way. And I love that Matt Smith is friends with Fabian Frankel, like in real life, like they're actual genuine friends. So if you guys haven't watched those back and forths, recommend it as a nice little side. Michael, your thoughts on Shannon? Were you finished with what you had to say?
Yes.
Okay, Michael, your thoughts here on Team Green and all the stuff. I mean, Queen Alicent, in a way, kind of conniving against her son by saying, well, wait till Aegon is sick of being king, and then you and I, Otto, we will take over running the kingdom in essence through him. She dealing with Aemon, her trying to keep Aemon out of the council. Aemon saying, or Aegon saying, Aemon, it belongs in the council here because he's my right-hand man. Aegon still showing those impulses to be a little nefarious, shall we say, by having one of the Lannisters walk around, the new master of coin there, walk around on all fours while Jaehaerys rides him. And then what's going on here with Larys, whispering in the king's ear, trying to get himself in a position here to become the hand. What are your thoughts on everything that's going on here on the side of the Greens?
Well, as you guys were kind of going through Team Green and where everybody was standing, I couldn't help but think about when we were reviewing the Acolyte episode 3 last week, and we were talking about the 4 Jedi coming in together. And like one of the critiques that we were discussing was you have these 4 characters, but we're not really clear on what each one of the 4 of them thinks. And maybe we're going to learn more as we find out more that reveals. But when you're looking at this, the subtle difference, everyone on Team Green is like, okay, well, Aegon is the king and Rhaenyra needs to accept that. But beyond that, it is wildly different perspectives, and watching all of them sort of maneuver around each other is really amazing. Alicent is maybe one of my favorite characters, not because I think she's right, because she's not, but she is stuck with her own choices, and she has absolutely no way out. And like Shannon said, she has 2 shit kids. So her entire, like you were saying, she's kind of conniving against her son, but she's conniving against her son because she knows her son's a shitty king.
Yeah.
And she knows Aemon, like they're like, oh, well, he was like her entire, I mean, look, he did get his eyes stabbed out, and Rhaenyra never had Lucerys apologize. And so I guess, I mean, it was, yes, he overcorrected, but maybe, and then the 2 of them trying to talk around the fact that like one of your children is an idiot, and the other one is a serial killer, and you're like, well, let's just try and keep them in control until we can figure this out. And you're like, this is the hand they're dealt.
Yeah.
Like the only claim Team Hightower has to the throne are these 2 kids, and these 2 kids are shit. But this is what they got to work with. This is what Otto's got to work with. And the difference is, like to Shannon's point, I don't think that Otto actively is like Aemon and just wants to see the world burn and kill everybody. But to Otto, killing everybody is just logical and makes sense. Like he doesn't have a bone to pick with Rhaenyra per se, but he's like, as long as she's alive, this is what's gonna happen. And my daughter keeps trying to like play nice with her childhood bestie, and it's gonna destroy the land. And if we just killed her, everybody would get in line. Yeah. Like in a very clear-cut way, he's not wrong. It's just a horrible thing to do, but as far as what he's looking at, it makes sense. But to him, it's a foregone conclusion that they just got to kill everybody over on Dragonstone. And Alicent is sort of still trying to live in this I mean, she does kind of admit by the end that she knows it's a fantasy and violence is inevitable, but she wants nothing more than to be like, hey, Rhaenyra, let's just be best friends. Why can't you just let all this go and let's be best friends and just accept that my son is king? Like that's and it is kind of in season 1, it sort of was a little bit more like, okay, it's sweet that she kind of wants that, and I want them to get together. At this point, you're like, bitch, get it. You made some bad choices. You made some bad choices, and you got to deal with it now. So it's fascinating watching all of them. Aegon is just, what they're doing with him that's interesting is he's not quite Joffrey. Joffrey was no. I'm not going to defend Aegon. Like, don't worry.
I was going to say,
I'm not going to say he's good. But Joffrey was actively like, I just want to fuck with people. And this whole scene with Aegon and Otto when everyone's coming in.
Oh yes.
Aegon's like, yeah, give the guy his goats. That makes sense. And Otto's like, well, we can't do that. We got to feed the dragons. He's like, well, let's just give him back his goats. And you're like, nope, you can't do that. Like, Otto has a very subtle eye roll that is hilarious. Like it's like when Aegon's like, okay, we'll give you back your goats. And Otto just gives like fuck this shit. It's definitely a Monday in King's Landing. But so like like Aegon is just a not good king. He's
Right.
not shit, and he does try and have like a Lannister go full pony boy, but he still like seems like he almost kind of wants to be a good king, even though maybe he knows deep down that he can't be, that he just doesn't have it in him. And then Aemon is just like wild. Like Otto sitting down and going, "Can you please just get your impulses under control?" It's like, well, come on, Otto. We all know that's not going to happen. And with Kristen Cole, I mean, like the ultimate fuckboy of Westeros.
Come on, come on now.
I do think. I mean, to Shannon's critique, I think there's a very specific reason that they don't age him. Does it make sense? No. Should he logically be older? Yes. But he represents this for Alicent. Like he has to be this temptation. Like she keeps going back to him. She's like, we can't do this anymore. Goes right back to him. Like his power that he has is that he's hot. Like that's the power he's got in this situation. So by not aging him up and like just letting him sort of remain stupidly hot, it's sort of like you get it. If he all of a sudden had the gray hair and he had the crow's feet and Alicent was still like, yeah, I'm gonna fuck this guy, you're like, all right, well, this is just sad. But you're like, yeah, no, Alicent, I get it. I get it. So like it's all, and then we didn't even talk about Helena.
Yeah, please.
But, which I know we're gonna get to her in a bigger way, but just like I love that she just sort of sits there, sounding like the dumbest person in the world, and she's probably the smartest person on Team Green.
Yeah, look at her. I mean, just the sad face of what she knows is coming, and her prophecy of the rats we'll get to, of course, with blood and cheese. Yeah, I think you guys covered a lot of it. So I only want to add a couple of things that were talked about in the council, which I think was really important. If we're looking at who's going to be going where, because the Starks and the Vale still haven't declared for Aegon. And if you've read the books, you know which way they go. And House Baratheon, we know is Team Green because of Aemon committing to marry one of the daughters there of the Baratheons. So that will happen. Golden Tooth is expected to declare for Aegon, and we see the Lannisters marching on Golden Tooth. And we know that's going to lead them to have a lot of money down the road, the Lannisters, which is why we get the prick Lannisters later in Game of Thrones. And there are more Hightowers marching down from the south, from Old Town. So they're definitely galvanizing themselves. House Tully has not declared. We hear that. So will that be Harrenhal will be involved? How's that involved? And Dalton Greyjoy, who is also known as the Red Kraken in the books, and you'll find out why when you read the books, will align. They're trying to convince him to align with them if they make him master of ships, because they have nobody in charge of the of the Navy for now. So
and they need a Navy.
They need a Navy, right? Exactly. They need to put together a Navy. But little do they know that House Black is suffering because their Navy, they don't have enough, which we'll get to, they don't have seaworthy ships. In their mind, they see the blockade, and clearly the blockade is the reason for the goats, the reason for the iron. And I should throw this in as well. In the back and forth with the people who were petitioning the king, we had a rather large gentleman step forward and speak for the blacksmiths, so to speak, and that's Hugh. And Hugh is going to be a big part of the show as we go forward. As I said, not going to ruin anything, but Hugh becomes a part of the show. You find out that he is connected to a certain house and a certain bloodline, and certain things happen with him. So just keep an eye on Hugh as the season goes along. But yeah, I love the moving here. I love that Alicent still, look, as much as I think that she willfully misunderstood the king, and it is much more clear in the book what she did. I like that there's gray area here so that I can like feel somewhat like tragedy here that she's the one who says to the council that she sent the letters out. She wants to sue for peace. She wants to find a way for Rhaenyra to bend the knee and they all just kind of live together happily ever after, but it's not going to happen. And even when she pleads to Otto, it's like, dude, I'm just trying to get everybody in line. We will rule shit if you just listen to me and we'll do this together. I know my son, he's not going to want to be king for much longer. Just let me put this into position and we'll be fine. And on the Aegon side of things, that really threw me for a loop. That the guy who is having a bunch of kids because he could watch them fight in fight pits is also out here being like, yeah, we should give them his goats and we should give them their money and we should take care of people. And even says to Larys, I do want to be seen like my father was as a person of the little people, as they said. So, and the Larys aspect of this all, I think is fascinating as well, because if he does angle himself into the hand of the king, which I don't know if he does or not in the books, I think it's going to be a fascinating situation because remember last season, he essentially helped Alicent to wipe out all of Otto's spies. So now that she's bringing Otto closer and he's put his people in charge of that whole, of the whole castle, then he's going to have a lot of power, and he may be angling his way into a position where he can, really influence like the little finger of the show in essence. So yeah, fascinating. Sorry, Mike, you wanted to jump in with something?
No, I just think he's creepy, and I wonder if he's going to want to see Aegon's feet.
Whoa! I did like the scene following that when he said that he had selected Alicent's staff personally, and the next scene is the new handmaidens bathing her, and she's like, "Yeah, get out of here."
Alicent is.
That's a good point.
It's exactly what was happening last season too. Like, she recognizes the value of Larys, but she doesn't like Larys, and she doesn't particularly trust him either. So she knows having Larys on her side gives her a little bit more power in dealing with her dad, with Aegon, with everybody else, which the fact that she needs to have this power to deal with her own family speaks to a whole other level of issues. But yeah, she doesn't trust him either. I mean, she's feeling trapped in that castle. The whole like her rubbing, her like cleaning herself, like, because what is the one handmaiden had like the little powder or something? It was just probably just like soap, but like her paranoia is just through the roof. I mean, she is alone. The only person she's got is her fuckboy.
Yeah, Chris, and even he is kind of, he's working with Aemon. Him and Aemon are besties. Even though he may not know that he's banging his mom. They're besties in this whole situation. So that could be interesting once he finds out if Helena lets it slip, who clearly witnessed all of that happening in her trauma. One last thing before we leave the Greens. Alicent, another reason why I kind of am rooting for her a little bit and figuring this all out. Her lighting the candle for Viserys and Lucerys. Like, she doesn't have to light a candle for Lucerys, but she does. The other person she lights the candle for, which some of you may not know, is her mom. That's who she says in the name there. Ellery Florent is her mom. And when we saw her wearing blue dresses in the first part of House of the Dragon season 1, it was because her house Florent is blue. That's what it is. That's why this change to green was so big at the wedding there, to show that she had aligned herself with the Hightowers rather than her mom's side of the family. So fascinating thing to think about there. There is still some goodness in her, I think. Yeah,
her lighting a candle for the child that her son ate with a dragon is literally the Westeros version of thoughts and prayers. It is the least that she can do.
True. Fair point. All right, well, let's take a break before we jump into House Black and get into some real shit and talk blood and cheese here after this.
Peter Dinklage.
All right, House Black here. Let's talk about it. Rhaenyra is grieving over her son, Daemon, and Rhaenys's exchanges, a real revelatory thing. Daemon is one of the most insensitive pricks in the whole show. He's like, can't you get over the death of her son? And he says that probably because it's not his blood that the son was from that died. So what does he care, right? But then I love Rhaenys reminding him, when my daughter died, I didn't cry. It reminded me of Godfather 2 when Hyman Roth says to him, Michael, when you killed my fucking guy, I didn't say shit. Here you are crying about the death of Sonny. Get out of here. So anyway, we see Rhaenyra's in the Stormland. She wants to find proof of the death of her son. We also touch base with Corlys, and we get to meet this guy, Alan, who I think is from what I understand, is going to be a big, big part of the show. Where is he? I thought I had him as a picture. Sorry, guys. I have so many pictures. I have so many names. Oh, I don't have the picture. Oh, here he is. Alan, this guy. Keep tabs on Alan, because Alan is going to be something like Hugh that becomes a bigger part of the show, and his brother as well. So we hear about that they don't have enough seaworthy ships, that this blockade that they have is tenuous at best because they need to repair these ships and get into a position. So we see a little bit of the weakness there from them as well. We hear that they are blocking the gullet, which is a very, very valuable trade route for them as well. And then, of course, we'll get to blood and cheese later. So Michael, I go to you. House Black here. Your thoughts of what's going on and the performances and the storylines getting furthered here in this particular episode.
Rhaenys is the best thing I've ever seen in my life, and she continues to be the best thing that I've ever seen in my life. She hops off that dragon looking like the most badass of badasses that ever badassed in Westeros. And Daemon comes in just trying every Daemon trick in the world.
Oh, yeah.
To getting in her face, kind of overpowering her physically, like in her space. She gives zero fucks about Daemon, and it's delightful. Oh, yeah. When she's walking away and he's like, you have to fly out with me, that's an order. And she says, were that you were king, and just walks away. I love her so much. And I think this scene, and look, even what Alicent is doing at King's Landing and what Rhaenyra is dealing with, this scene, the whole show is making a really interesting statement on powerful women versus powerful men.
Right.
Because in no way do Rhaenyra or Rhaenys seem remotely weak. And Alicent, even though she's got her share of problems, is holding her own in a tenuous situation. Yeah. And all of them actually do want, like, let's all get along. You should grieve. Sadness is okay. This is important. Like, whereas Daemon has the much more traditional male role of, like, bury your feelings deep down and let's just deal with this shit. Mm-hmm. Like, and so I think the whole exchange with Daemon and Rhaenys was really, really interesting. To Shannon's point, Rhaenyra has one line in the episode, but she still sort of runs this episode. Like, just her grief, her grief when she's just watching the Baratheons Stormfront, and when she finds the wing and is grieving, and her dragon, like, behind her, howling at the sky, like, she just. It's so powerful. Her grief is so powerful. It's so single-minded. It's great. The whole Corlys scene was really interesting because, like, you can tell, like, as someone who doesn't know what happens in the books, but, like, watching this scene and his whole interaction, you get the sense that, we get the information that, the blockade is a little bit more tenuous than we were led to believe it is. And we also get this, but like the weakness that he has, like the frailty that he has now that he didn't have in season 1.
Hobbling.
And then this whole exchange, like, you're like, okay, this is, if you file this under, this will be important later. Like, I don't really know what this scene is doing here now, but file this away under, this is important. And then I tell you, man, when Jaecaerys comes back and he's trying to report into his mom about what happened and, like, who he talked to, and his voice like, that kid's got the acting chops. Like, it got me. It got me. Like, this whole scene where he's just trying to be a grown-up. He's trying to do exactly what I was saying before. Like, with Daemon, he's trying to bury his emotions. He's like, I know what happened, but, like, I've got a job to do and I'm reporting to you. And his voice starts cracking. Boy, I was like, I'm clearly back in. I'm clearly back in on this show because it got me. And like, dragons, for the fact that, like, they are as powerful as they are and are causing such a problem for King's Landing, and that they do have more of the dragons. And I think
13-4.
Which is why King's Landing has scorpions all over the turrets, because they know they're at a weakness. They seem more on, like, there's just a lot of, we don't have a plan. Like, over in King's Landing, they are going out and they're doing this and they've got all these plans, and Otto's got plans, and Cristen's got plans, and Aemon's got plans, and Alicent's got plans, and everyone's got plans. And everyone in Dragonstone is like, so Rhaenyra, what should we do? And she's like, I want Aemon. Like, it's kind of like there's not a consolidated we're at war yet on that side. Whereas the High Towers are fully like, let's go for it. But they're more emotional, and you sort of sympathize with all of them more.
Yeah, and maybe why Daemon sees an opening to do what he does, which we're going to talk about in a second, in a little bit here after Shannon goes. But maybe the reason why he takes the impulse to go and use the information from this area to go and do this to satisfy what Rhaenyra is asking for. Shannon, your thoughts on what's going on here with House Black on this side of the fence, and what we get from the performances here in these characters?
Well, I love that we touched on Corlys Velaryon, because in season 1, he was the one that wanted to go fight in the Stepstones.
Right.
Like, that was his thing. Yeah. And so now dealing with the consequences of that, in that he is wounded and that he is mortal. He's lost one of his grandsons. Like, I think he knows Luke wasn't his grandson, but he does still feel that connection. And
Shannon, not just the grandson, the heir to Driftmark. So it's heirless right now, Driftmark. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. He was like, but to Shannon's point, I mean, that's kind of like, he kind of knew that that's not really
right, but still
the guy. But he still was like, look, we're on Team Rhaenyra.
Yeah.
We're going to accept what she says. this child does not have platinum blonde hair, but I'm going to go and he's the heir. We're going to go with this. This is the world we're living in now.
Because he wants Valyrian blood on the throne. Yeah.
He lost his son.
Yeah.
He thinks his son is dead.
Right. Right. Yes.
So
Rhaenyra, yes.
So he has made this connection,
and his daughter was burnt to death. So yes, there's a lot for him to deal with. Go ahead, Shane.
He's lost a lot, but he's made this connection with this young sailor who was the one who saved him.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I think, again, having not read the books, I mean, you could tell from their interaction. Like, I went back and looked. I'm like, was Alan in the first season? Because we're spending some time with him. And so I'm like, so this guy is going to be important.
Yeah.
Going over to Rhaenyra, watching that processing of the grief, the moment that she sees the dragon wing. One, I just love. I love what they have done, and they did this in Game of Thrones too. But I mean, there is a non-magical quality to the dragons. Like, these are animals.
Yeah.
But they are animals that a particular group of people have this insane connection with. Yeah. So you see, as she hops off her dragon, she finds Luke's like riding cloak, essentially, and that howling that the dragon does, that moan of grief, because that connection. Daemon is such a fascinating character because Daemon's not a good guy. Daemon is going after Aemon not because out of any sense of justice, in my opinion.
Right.
Daemon wants to win.
Yeah.
And he thinks, this is how I am going to win. Like, you hit us, I'm going to hit you harder. Yeah. So seeing what he is willing to do, and I got to think, even though like the one guy, the blood was one of the King's Guard, so clearly an accomplished fighter, part of me is like, he had to know he was sending these two guys potentially to their grave, because he knows what kind of fighter Aemon is. And so the only thing that they have going for them is that element of surprise. But Daemon, he's so caught up with winning, he makes poor decisions. And I think this was probably, despite and again, what the fallout was going to be.
Yeah.
This was a bad decision, because unless you catch Aemon fully off guard, these guys are dead.
Make good decisions. Yeah, I agree with you. I think Daemon looks for openings, right? That's what Daemon does. And he's a very selfish, self-centered sack of shit. Like, he is blaming everybody, right? He blames Rhaenys, as you said, Mike, when he gets off the dragon, says, well, if you would take care of Aegon when you burst through the floor there, we wouldn't be dealing with this shit. Then he blames Mysaerius about, like, well, if you had not helped him become king, is that her name, Mysaerius? Sorry about that. If I'm getting that name. Yeah, Mysaria. You with the White Worm. If you hadn't helped him become king, this wouldn't have happened. And so he's blaming everybody passive aggressively for all the situations that are going on here in the conflict that they find themselves in. But he's kind of a prick in that way. But go ahead, Mike. Yeah.
There's like props to Mysaria though for calling him out. Like, she straight up says it. She's like, "You're just doing this because you can't get at the people that you're actually mad at, so you're taking it out on me." And you're like, "Yep, no, she's not wrong."
She's not wrong, exactly. And he tries to bargain with her freedom that he just put her in jail for. So it's like, it's so good. But Rhaenyra, I mean, these shots they're so powerful in what Emma Darcy does. And, it's watching her sometimes off screen when she talks about what she's doing as an actress in the role. It's fascinating to me when she goes, "Oh, my face is not doing anything." It's like, what are you talking about? Your face is doing so much that we are completely connected to the fierceness of her face when she is standing there and really kind of contemplating what she has to see. And I love Rhaenys saying she needs to see the body in order to finally accept the loss. And I think a lot of people who have lost someone through circumstances that have gone missing and have never found the body again, they would probably understand that. A lot of people from like Vietnam with the veterans, they never had their loved ones come back from that war. And it's like not being able to see the body, feel the body. There's just there's a loss there in the grieving and in the getting over it that never gets closed when you don't see the body. So when she sees the cloak, that's enough for her. She knows sees the wing of the dragon, Jaecaerys. She knows that that's it. And so the funeral pyre there, which is very reminiscent of when she lit her mom's body on fire after Viserys died, there's like this thing here. So I love the power of all of that. And yes, as you guys said, one line was enough. And of course, Daemon is a moron and goes the other direction. So let's get into that side of things here. Daemon sends blood and cheese after a king, after a son of a king here, and saying a son for a son, sends these two guys, one a rat catcher, one a member of the King's Guard, because there are still people who are faithful to Daemon on the King's Guard side of things. So, Michael, your thoughts on this, because it does differ from the books a little bit, and some people have been complaining that it wasn't more nefarious, that it was a bit of a clumsy situation, that they stumbled upon Helena, then made her choose between, and that she pointed to Jaehaerys, and that we heard the beheading, which on my headphones was so unsettling to listen to. And then we, of course, have her running into her mother's chamber and seeing her having sex with Cristen Cole. So your thoughts on the blood and cheese and all this came up.
And I'm just so I'm clear, because I was reading a little bit of it, but it doesn't Alicent see it in the books? Is that another thing that people?
Yes. She sees it. They capture Alicent and they hold her until Helena shows up. Then Helena's the one that points them the way. And yes, they all witness it. So it's much more active what they're doing, rather than clumsy and stumbling and awkward and fucking it up, so to speak.
It's funny because I watched the episode. I loved all this. I thought this entire sequence was tense and amazing, and what a way to kick off the season. Like, I was super into it. Now I haven't read all of the all of the books that lead into House of the Dragon. I haven't read everything about it, so I didn't have that preconceived this is how it should be. Had I read it, maybe I would feel different. I understand that Alicent being the central character on Team Green that we've talked about, having her be present for this and have to witness what was happening is probably more horrific and more iconic. So I can't really speak to, is this better or worse? Because to me, I just experienced for the first time and I was like, holy shit. What I do wonder, I think it's hilarious that they're named Blood and Cheese. Never would have known that. It shows serious restraint from the writers to not put it, because they're just such great names. Yeah. But I think they were like, it's a little silly. I guess we want this to really be tense. Let's not have these guys, hey, Blood, hey, Cheese, let's go. But I mean, they're such great names. When Cheese says to Daemon, well, what if we can't find Aemon?
Yeah.
And then you just see Daemon's face, but we never see what he says. Like, the question I have, and I don't know if anybody can answer this, or like this is supposed to be vague, like how bumbling was this decision at the end? Like, did they really just kind of fall into this situation and go, okay, well, we couldn't find the other one, let's take this? Or was Daemon like, look, you kill any son that's in there, like that? The implication that I got was, by the time they got in there, even though it wasn't Aemon, Daemon was like, I don't care who you kill, or like it was a little bit vague. But yeah, like, I thought the entire sequence was amazing. I think seeing all the rats throughout the episode, leading up to this, like the number of time, like all the rats, and I know in season 1 they were complaining about the rats, like just the rats in King's Landing, and then having the rat catcher kind of vibe going into this whole thing. Like, the whole thing was creepy. Again, if you watch the behind the scenes stuff, the way the production team built these sewers is amazing. Like, the sets themselves were just so gorgeous, like so much more than they needed to do for this scene, but it looked amazing. And then just like the realization when like he's got Helena and you see them, and like for me, not knowing what was going on, the realization where they're like, well, look, that's a son, so we could do this, and I'm like, fuck. And just doing the calculations, because there's a world, and not that, let's just say hypothetically, we all knew Aemon wasn't gonna die, but hypothetically, had they killed Aemon, sure, everybody would be like, fuck these guys. But like at a certain point, you're like, look, he killed him, so we killed him. It kind of does equal out, tragedy all around. But then killing the kid, you're just like, well, shit.
Yeah.
This is going bad. And yes, I agree. When the Foley team gets an assignment and says, hey guys, so we're not going to see this death on screen, but it's up to us to really sell this. What can we do? They got a little overexcited. It was intense.
It was super intense.
That sawing noise was horrific. And then just the way the whole thing was shot, like Helena just does have this like completely, I mean, whether she is just sitting there sewing or she is dealing with the death of one of her children, she sort of just has this doe-eyed sort of like, she just looks like she looks like everything is the same level of whatever to her, or that she's always horrified. I can't tell which one, but it's always, she sort of just lives in this vague haze. And then at the end, when she's like, they killed the boy or whatever she says to Alicent, it's, you know, she never screams, she doesn't panic, she's not hyperventilating. It's just this very like, girl, you are
Yeah.
weird.
Well, I mean,
but
she
yeah,
talks
but like, and then just really quickly, like, just what a way to end that first episode.
yes, agreed.
Like ending the last season with the death of a son and going, this is about to blow up, and then getting to the beginning of season 1, and you're like, well, shit, this just got even worse.
Yeah, agreed. And just to give a little background, Shannon, before you go here, the blood and cheese storyline in the show, or in the book rather, it was always supposed to be Helena's children. The plan all along was that for them to murder one of Aegon and Helena's sons, and that was the plan. And as a result, blood and cheese use their knowledge that Helena often brings her children to Alicent each night before bed to their advantage. They tie the queen up, Alicent, hide her in her bedroom, waiting for the queen and her children. When she arrives, that's Helena. They kill her guardsmen and barricade the door before forcing Helena to decide which of her sons will be killed. But she has 3 kids in the book, Jaehaerys, Jahara, and Maelor. Helena first offers herself, but then they threaten to rape and vow to kill all 3 of the children if she doesn't decide. And then she chooses Maelor in the book, not Jaehaerys. And so they kill Maelor in the book, not Jaehaerys. So that's the difference between the two. And Daemon, in essence, says go and kill the children of Helena. And so by leaving it ambiguous in the show, they make a difference there. So Shannon, your thoughts on how this all went down and the differences between the book?
I mean, again, not knowing the book, I think what we got based off of that description, I think what we got was inherently better. Because I think when you look at the history of our world, the history of conflict, it is loaded with mistakes.
Yeah.
That this is what we were going to do, but this is what we had to do. Right. And so the fact that these 2 knuckleheads, you know, I mean, again, in my headcanon, they find Aemon, they're both dead.
Yeah. And I'm sure Daemon wouldn't have cared about it either, too. Yeah.
But I think the tragedy, it's just building the tragic mistakes that both sides continue to make, and it's ultimately going to get to a point where they can't come back from it. Like, they are on this path, they are going to try to kill each other no matter what the cost. So I think the way we got it, for me at least from a storytelling perspective, I think was way better. The dynamic between blood and cheese, like, cheese is set up, you kind of feel a little bad for him. Like, what do? You catch rats in the castle. You avert your eyes from the royals. You're not allowed to go on certain floors. So, and then you find out he has these gambling debts. Like, of course he has gambling debts. He's looking for any way out of the situation that he finds himself in.
Good point. Yeah.
You know, blood is a killer. Like, just the way that he speaks with Daemon is like, okay, this guy is trained to extinguish life. Poor cheese is just like, man, I'm just trying to get by. And so he needs that money. But then the moment we start to feel bad for cheese after blood threatens him, like, look, I'll go kill him and take all of them. I'll kill you right now. Cheese fucking kicks a dog. Yeah. And it's like, you're a piece of shit.
Oh my God, you're right. Oh, nope, you're so mad when I saw
you're a bad guy. You're a bad guy. Because I think it, and I would never advocate for animal abuse, but I think without knowing, like, oh no, you're a piece of shit, him grabbing Helena with a knife to her throat I'm like, that's too sudden a turn. Like, this guy, this coward would never do this. But like, oh no, you have the capacity to be incredibly cruel, and you have found yourself in this situation. Like, hey, we're going to be able to get this money and not have to put ourselves as much at risk as we would have. Helena's thing, she has this disorganized clairvoyance. Like, she knows the things that are happening, and that's why she's not, I think she doesn't react in a normal way that someone would. Like, you see your infant son being decapitated, and in her mind's eyes, just like, well, yeah, I knew that was going to happen, so let me get the one that I can save and get out of here. I thought the longer it went, I'm thinking, oh, they are not going to find Aemon. they're going to find someone. I don't know who it is, but it ain't going to be the guy that could take them apart. So yes, I think also her coming in and seeing her mom and Cristen Cole, it's like, okay, so this is coming back. The Foley, maybe they went a little overboard. Because just when you think the world of Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon, just when you think they can't go further, it's like, oh no, you did. You found a way. You found a way to go further. But yeah, I thought the end really, really well done.
It's like The Boys. You got to one up it. Okay, Human Centipede. Here we go. But yeah, I agree. I mean, I thought they did it appropriate to you understand the horror of it all. But I think it worked for this show. Do you know what I'm saying? That book version doesn't work for the show they've constructed. There has to be bumbling. There has to be awkwardness. There has to be a sense of like a mistake or an error here that allows some movability emotionally for these characters and for you to gravitate to them. So now Alicent has lost the moral high ground, Rhaenyra has lost the moral high ground on Alicent because Alicent did not send Daemon out to kill Lucerys with Vhagar. That did not, but it happened to work out that way. Daemon did not send these guys in there to kill the children of Helena, and well, you would imagine because he didn't respond. Didn't say you have that plausible deniability. They didn't 100% say kill the children of Helena and Aegon. So the fact that one has died, now they've both made tragic accidents. Yeah. So it will be an interesting thing when they get together to talk.
And even when you said like in the book with Alicent with Viserys in season 1, that it's a little bit more like it feels like, and again, this is just my interpretation of it, that in the book it's a little bit clear that Alicent saw an opportunity and took it. Whereas in the show, it's very much more Alicent really thinks that that's what Viserys said. And I think by having, Shannon's 100% right, by having these things be more misunderstandings, accidents, tragic, it makes everything that's happening feel much more tragic.
Yeah. 100%. All right. So there's one last Easter egg, but you guys can find it if you want. When you go through the tapestry thing that Shannon mentioned, there's a bunch of events. You can go to Screen Rant. They list all the events. We don't have time for me to list them out, but there's a bunch of events that happen in that tapestry that talk about stuff that happened in the past and maybe foreshadowing stuff that's going to happen in the show throughout the whole series of this particular season. So a lot there to jump into if you want to do that Easter egg wise. All right, that's it. That's our spoiler review. Any final words here? And tell people what we need to tell them there, Shannon.
I'm so happy to be back in Westeros. I hope you are too. And yeah, if you'd like to follow us on social media, on Twitter, it's @geek_buddies, on Instagram at @the_geek_buddies. You can tell us on there if you are happy to be back in Westeros. If you'd like to follow Mr. Vogel, it is @MKToon. If you'd like to follow Mr. Rocha, it is @TheRochaSays. And if you'd like to follow me on Twitter, it's @Shannon_McClung, on Instagram @ShannonGeekBuddies. I got a little switched around.
That's all right. Michael, your final words and anything you want to say to our fans who we thank very much for watching.
Listen, it's going to be a blast. It's going to be a wild ride. Things are going to get crazy. So keep tuning in and we will keep talking about it here. And while you do that, you can smash the like button below. Subscribe to Johnny's Outlaw Nation page. Check out all the amazing content he has got there. Leave your comments below. What do you think about rat-infested King's Landing and more dragons coming to Dragonstone? Let us know all your thoughts below. What do you think is going to happen? What do you know is going to happen? What are you excited is going to happen? Let us know. If you're listening to us on a podcast, leave us some stars and comments so we go up in the rankings there. And as always, the best thing you can do is retweet this video, post it on your socials, send it to your friends, and tell them to hang out with your buddies, the Geek Buddies.
There you go. All right, y'all take care of yourselves. Be well. We will absolutely be spoiler reviewing every episode of season 2 here at House of the Dragon. So come on back and hang out with us for those here on the
Geek
Buddies.